Hey everyone, my name is Monica Spicer and I'm a counseling student at Wichita State University. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about deep breathing for anxiety management. So a little bit about my background. I actually, even though I am getting my degree in counseling, I do have a background in singing, specifically opera singing. And so deep breathing has always been something that I guess you might say has been a thing I need to know. And I've really learned how to apply it to counseling and managing my own mental health and anxiety. And so I feel like it's one of those things that you can really use in a lot of aspects of your life. It doesn't take a lot of time. It takes a little bit of practice, but really it's pretty simple. And when I was making this presentation, I specifically kind of liked this picture of the whale. And you kind of think about how a whale, I don't think is thinking about its breathing. It just, it flows in the water, and then when it needs a breath, it comes up and it, uses its blowhole, and you get a nice deep breath, and you see, it's really easy for us to see where that air is coming out because we see that nice big splash of water, or the spray of water that comes out. And I want us to think about our breath kind of in the same way. So even though we can't see our breath, maybe still imagine that we're kind of like that killer whale where we're pushing that breath out and it's nice and strong, and that it's making a nice big splash, instead of maybe some of the other ways we're doing it where we're only maybe, making just a little bit of a, not much. So first off, I think it's important for us to think about what is actually deep breathing. And it seems like a simple question, but I feel like looking at this illustration really helps. So when I think of deep breathing, and I think most people would agree that you have to be rather intentional when it comes to deep breathing. A lot of times it doesn't seem natural to us. We have to kind of intentionally think about using the diaphragm. And if you're not sure what the diaphragm is, you can look at this illustration right here. It's right here where this blue, like the blue and red here, is where the arrow is pointing. And so that's right at the base of your rib cage. And as you can see in the illustration, when you're inhaling, that diaphragm contracts. And then when you exhale, your chest contracts. Okay, so that diaphragm expands, which also allows your chest to expand. And then once you relax again and let that breath out, the diaphragm also relaxes. It also has a tendency, if you're really using the diaphragm correctly, you're going to feel like you're pushing your belly out. Okay, so as much as, most of us feel like we need to suck in and, try to look skinnier all the time, that's actually the opposite of what we should be doing on a day-to-day basis with our breath. And so that's also one of the reasons why deep breathing doesn't necessarily come naturally. I feel like it's also important to recognize what is not deep breathing. So chest breathing is oftentimes what a lot of us do, and especially when we're anxious. Okay, so when we're anxious, we tend to take shorter breaths, which, I'm not a scientist per se, so I can't tell you the exact chain of events, but all the things that kind of go together are, you start to feel your heartbeat race, you start to feel your blood pressure go up, you start to feel your breath go quicker and not as deep. And so you'll see that normally when we're using our diaphragm, yes, it moves down, but if we're not taking nice full deep breaths, it's not going to move down as much. And so we can't quite get as much oxygen and expand our lungs like we really should be. And instead of feeling our belly really expanding and contracting, it really ends up feeling more just that our chest expands and contracts. And that's not really what we want. And you'll kind of see why as we go through this. So deep breathing, what is the value of it? I've been doing a little more background reading on this, and I specifically was reading from Harvard Health Publishing. And some of the reasons why we we should deep breathe is kind of like I mentioned before. We have a tendency to want to flatten our stomachs, okay? So just letting our stomachs relax and pooch out isn't really what we feel like doing because, especially women, and the article did specifically cite this, that especially women tend to want to hold in their stomachs because they don't want to, feel like their stomachs are being, pooched out. But that just leads to more anxiety because that leads us to not breathing as deep. So we get an increase of oxygen to our lungs the more that we expand that lower abdomen out. That helps reduce our anxiety because it also reduces our heartbeat, helps slow that down, and also can lead to a drop in our blood pressure, or at least a stabilization of blood pressure. I don't mean a drop as in a dangerous drop, but just kind of stabilizes everything and resets back to where it should be. And what I really like is to kind of think of this as a reset. So when you find yourself kind of racing through your mind, whether you're in a stressful situation, like if you're in the middle of taking a test, if you're about to, go do an important competition or play an important sports game, it can be really anxiety producing if it's something that you really care about. Or maybe you're scared, maybe something, you're afraid of something and you can't stop thinking about it and you're on the verge of a panic. Resetting how you feel, deep breathing is key to that. Okay, so deep breathing just helps reset some of that and gets that heartbeat to slow back down, and in turn makes us feel a little less anxious. Okay, so some ways to practice deep breathing. So I'm going to kind of describe it first and then we're going to practice it together. So the way I like to do it, and this again kind of comes from my singer's background, is I like to place my hand several inches below belly button. So think maybe, it depends on how how high you wear your pants, but it can be kind of right where your belt might be, or it might even be a little bit lower. I remember, I had a choir teacher say once that the breath really mostly should come from below the belt. So wherever that may be for you, but I would say several inches below your belly button. And then hold your other hand up to your mouth with your palm open and have it face the side. Okay, and then we're going to use counts of 4. So we're going to breathe in for 4. Try to get all of your breath in on 4 counts, which might require a little more control than what you're used to. And then once we get to 4, we're going to go back out, exhale with the count of 4 again, and hold our hands out in front of us and try to kind of think of blowing out a birthday candle. Okay, or think of that killer whale that's, spraying out of its air hole so that we, can really get the rest of the breath out. And we want to use those counts really intentionally, okay? Use those counts to really feel like you're in control. So when we feel like we're unraveling out of control, this can be a way for us to bring it back in and feel like we're back in control. Okay, and then once you've gone in for 4, out for 4, try repeating it several times. And then that should really get you reset back to a better place if you're feeling anxious. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this together. All right, so you're going to hold your hand up here. We're going to breathe in for a count of 4. Okay. And yes, I'm snapping with one hand to count for us, but yes, your hand should be down here on your abdomen, okay, below the belt. So I hope that maybe gave you some tools that you needed in order to relax a little bit. And just because we practiced it with, having our hand on our belly and our hand up here, that doesn't mean you're going to have to do that every time, okay? You can do this anywhere. If you're in the middle of a test, you can always stop. If you find yourself panicking, stop, take a deep breath, count in for 4, and then out for 4. And do that several times, and then reset that blood pressure, reset that heart rate, reset your breath, check yourself before you go on. I hope you found this video useful. Feel free to leave comments or suggestions or requests for other videos related to anxiety. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.